This is Pearl, and today I'm going to read Little Pilgrim's Progress Chapter 35, The Key of Promise. And I'm having some allergies today, so my voice might sound a little different. In the evening, the giant came down into the dungeon again, hoping to find that his poor little prisoners were dead. But although they were very weak and faint, they were still alive, and they had not touched the poison that he had left with them. This made Despair very angry, and he frightened the children so much with his terrible looks and words that little Christian fainted quite away. When his senses returned, the giant was gone, and only Hopeful sat by him, rubbing his hands and trying to keep him warm. "I think we shall have to take the poison," he said. "It is dreadful here. We cannot bear it much longer, and we shall never be able to escape." "You must not talk in that way," replied Hopeful. "You are forgetting all that has happened to you before. Just remember what a long way you have traveled and how many dangers you have been in. You were not afraid to fight with Self, and the king helped you to conquer him. You passed safely through the dark valley, and even in Vanity Fair, the king did not let you be killed. Let us trust in him and wait a little longer." Now the giant and his wife knew that pilgrims who killed themselves never went to the celestial city. But if Despair killed them, the king always sent his angels to carry them away. So when Diffidence heard that the children were still alive, she was no less angry than her husband. "You had better take them into the courtyard tomorrow," she said, "and let them see the bones of the pilgrims who have died here before. Then perhaps they will be frightened and will drink the poison." The giant thought that this would be a good plan, and in the morning he brought Christian and Hopeful out of the dungeon and led them into the courtyard, which was strewn all over with the bones of men and women, and even of little children. It was a very dreadful sight, and the giant was pleased to see how frightened his little prisoners looked. "These are the bones of pilgrims," he said. "They came into my meadows as you did, and I brought them to my castle and killed them. In a few days I shall put you both to death like I have the others, and your bones will lie here with the rest." Then he beat them once more, and they laid all day in their dark prison, crying together and wondering whether their troubles would ever come to an end. The same night, when Despair was talking to his wife, he said that he could not remember how it was that these two little boys were so very brave. "Perhaps," replied Diffidence, "they think that someone will come to save them, or they may have a key hidden in their clothes, with which they will open the doors when we are not watching. You have lost prisoners in that way many times." This was quite true, but the giant thought that if Christian had had one of the king's keys with him, he would have used it before. "But I will search them both in the morning," he said, and then he fell asleep. The little key, which was called the Key of Promise, lay in Christian's pocket. It had been given to him at the Palace Beautiful, but in his trouble he had forgotten all about it. Neither he nor Hopeful could sleep that night, and after talking together for some time, they began to pray to the king and beg him very earnestly to help them. "He will hear us," said Christian, "though we cannot see him, and I am beginning to feel as if we should escape after all." The king did hear the little pilgrim's prayer, and he sent one of his bright angels to tell them what to do. They did not see the angel, but a thought came suddenly into Christian's mind, and that thought was really a whisper of the king's bright messenger. "Oh, how stupid I have been!" he cried. "We have stayed here all these days, when you might have gone away at once. Discretion gave me a little key, and I believe it will open every one of the giant's locks." Hopeful sprang up. "Let us try it," he said. "It must still be night, and no doubt Despair is asleep." They felt carefully in the darkness until they found the lock of the dungeon door, and Christian put the key into it. It turned quite easily, and with beating hearts the boys stepped softly over the threshold and listened. A dim light shone down the passage, and they soon found their way to the door that led into the courtyard. This Christian opened also, and not daring even to whisper, Hopeful followed him across the pavement. The moon was shining brightly, and only one more door stood between the little pilgrims and the green meadow. But this last lock was very stiff, and although Christian tried with all his might, he could not turn the key. Then the giant's steps sounded upon the castle stairs, for he had heard someone moving. The little pilgrims thought that he would overtake them, and they were ready to faint with fear. But just as despair reached the doorway, his club dropped from his hands, and he fell heavily upon the ground. "Oh, do try harder," cried Hopeful, "and we shall go away before his fit is over." "I'm trying," said Christian, "but the lock is rusty." Hopeful put his hands also upon the key. "It is moving," he said, and in another moment the lock gave way. The giant still lay upon the ground, and the boys hastily pulled back the heavy bolts and opened the door. Then Hopeful seized Christian's hand, and they ran as fast as they could across the broad meadow toward the stile that led into the way of the king.